Welcome to Heart Over Gold, the channel where love, kindness, and humanity shine brighter than any fortune. In today's story, Emma Lawson's quiet marriage to Daniel felt more like routine than love. But when his old friend Ben arrived at her door one rainy afternoon, a simple conversation by the kitchen sink stirred a longing she thought she'd forgotten, and neither of them could ignore where it might lead. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments, and keep up with our latest stories. Lucy's heart pounded as she clutched the thin folder of papers to her chest. Her whole body felt like it was running on nothing but fear and hope. Just that morning she had been sitting on the edge of her worn-out sofa, staring at the overdue bills scattered across the coffee table. Her small apartment felt colder than usual, the silence only broken by the ticking clock on the wall. Rent was due in 3 days. Her fridge was almost empty, and her savings, well, there were no savings left. She was pregnant, alone, and terrified, but she refused to give up. When she saw the job posting pinned on the bulletin board outside the little grocery store, her first thought was that it was far too good to be true. Personal assistant wanted, discretion and reliability required, high pay. It sounded like a dream. And yet, here she was, standing outside an office so grand it made her feel as if she had stepped into another world entirely. The moment she walked in, she was greeted by the soft scent of fresh flowers and the quiet hum of polished efficiency. The man who interviewed her was tall, sharply dressed, and had eyes that seemed to notice every detail without missing a beat. His voice was calm but carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed. Lucy's palms were sweating. She couldn't afford to mess this up. Every answer she gave, every smile she offered, was carefully measured. When he finally looked up from her resume and said, "You're hired. You start tomorrow." The weight that lifted from her shoulders was so heavy it almost made her dizzy. She gripped the edge of her chair, fighting back tears. For months she had been living in constant fear of what tomorrow would bring. Now, for the first time in what felt like forever, tomorrow didn't seem like something to dread, it felt like a lifeline. She left the office with a mixture of relief and disbelief, the late afternoon sun spilling golden light over the busy city streets. In her pocket was a small slip of paper with her new work address. But in her heart, there was something far more precious: hope. She didn't know it yet, but this job wasn't just going to change her circumstances, it was going to change her life in ways she could never have imagined. Daniel Thorne. During the 3 weeks she had spent living there, she had barely interacted with the master of the house. As Isabella had predicted, he arrived late and left early. Occasionally would meet at breakfast, where they exchanged a few brief words about Gabriel without delving into other topics. However, one evening while reviewing some notebooks in the kitchen after putting Gabriel to bed, Daniel appeared. Lucy was surprised to see him. It was almost 11 at night, a time when who was usually engrossed in his study. He greeted Miss Reed and walked to Thefridge to get a glass of water. She felt intimidated by Mr. Thorne's imposing presence. "Do you require any assistance?" With a deep gaze, Daniel scrutinized her as if he could read her thoughts. According to Isabella, Gabriel is making academic progress at school, the teacher said. Amazed by the transformation, Lucy smiled proudly. "Gabriel is a very capable child. He just needed some support and self-belief." Daniel nodded, leaning against the kitchen counter. "In just 3 weeks you've achieved what 5 Ananes couldn't in over a year." Lucy, surprised by her own honesty, explained that she didn't see Gabrielle as a responsibility but as a child who needed attention and understanding. Daniel stared at her intently. "Are you implying that I haven't been paying attention to my own son?" "Miss Reed." Lucy stiffened, realizing she had crossed a line. "Oh no, my apologies. I didn't mean to," Daniel interrupted with a calmer voice than expected, stating that she didn't need to apologize for being honest. Heck conceded that she was right, admitting that he hadn't been supporting Gabriel as he should have been. An awkward silence settled between them. Lucy was speechless. She had never seen this city of Daniel Thorne. "I'd like to ask you a personal question," he finally inquired. "Of course. Is the father of your child here?" The question caught her off guard. Lucy looked down at her abdomen. 5 months ago, my husband, Matthew, passed away in a tragic accident," she said sadly. "I never imagined he'd become a father." Daniel paused for a brief moment. He seemed to carry the weight of his words as he said, "I'm so very sorry. It was wrong of me to ask." "Don't worry, it's part of my past." Daniel looked at her intently for a long moment as if he had something more to say, but in the end he nodded. "Good night, Miss Reed." "Good night, Mr. Thorne." After that meeting something shifted in their relationship. Daniel began to come home earlier, occasionally sharing dinner with Gabriel and Lucy. The boy seemed to thrive with his father's renewed interest, although Lucy sensed a certain reserve in Daniel, as if he worried that this happiness would be fleeting while helping Gabriel with his homework, the boy asked a surprising question. Do you think Dad likes having you here? Lucy blinked in surprise and replied yes. Probably if he didn't, he would have fired me, wouldn't he? Gabrielle nodded thoughtfully. I've never seen him so happy. He seems to enjoy talking to you. A sudden warmth flooded Lucy's cheeks. We're glad you're doing well at school, she replied, changing the subject. Let's finish solving these maths problems. However, Gabrielle's words lingered in her mind. She might be having a positive impact on both the child and his father. As her pregnancy progressed, Lucy felt heavier and more tired. Isabella, who had become friendlier over time, kept advising her to take more breaks, telling her it wasn't good to be on her feet so much. The baby will be here before you know it. While reading a story to Gabriel, she suddenly experienced an intense pain in her stomach. She tried to ignore it, but the pain's intensity made her groan. Gabriel, visibly worried, asked, Are you all right? She replied yes, just a new pain stopped her. Could you call your dad or Isabella? Gabriel ran out of the room. Moments later, Daniel appeared looking concerned, kneeling beside her. He asked, What's wrong? I'm not sure, Lucy replied, struggling to breathe. It's too early for the baby to come, but something isn't right. Daniel didn't hesitate to lift her into his arms, impressing her with his strength. Isabella, stay with Gabriello. Take Lucy to the hospital. Inside the car, Lucy struggled to control her fear as Daniel drove at high speed. It was imperative not to lose this little one. Matthew's baby was all she had left, the only possession in the world. Daniel, with confidence in his voice, reassured her that everything would be all right, as if he could read her thoughts. You can trust that I'll look after you and your little one. Lucy looked at him in surprise, hearing strength in his tone. In that instant, she saw something in his gaze she had never perceived before: vulnerability in the face of adversity. This influential man, seemingly in control of all situations, was filled with fear for her. At the hospital, doctors diagnosed Lucy with premature contractions. After receiving treatment, they managed to control the contractions. However, they recommended complete bed rest for a minimum of 2 weeks. As the doctor left the room, Lucy expressed her concern about not being able to work. Daniel, who had accompanied her throughout the ordeal, shook his head as she said, Gabriel needed her now. Your primary responsibility is to look after yourself and your little one. Gabriel will understand this. She insisted on the agreement they had made. He firmly intervened to point out that their agreement covered her health and comfort. Rest now, we'll talk tomorrow. After Daniel left, Lucy lay still in the hospital room, reflecting on what had happened. Daniel Thorne was showing an unfamiliar side, compassionate, caring, and even vulnerable. Something inside her was changing to a relationship that was initially purely professional, was evolving into something more significant, causing her mixed emotions of fear and attraction. After Matthew's passing, Lucy felt her heart beginning to beat again for someone else. However, fate held more surprises, and soon the mystery connecting Daniel's and Lucy's lives be revealed, irrevocably altering their destinies. What do you think is the hidden connection between Daniel and Lucy that will soon be revealed? How do you think this revelation will impact their fragile new bond? Share your predictions in the comments below. When Lucy opened her eyes in her room at the imposing Thorne mansion, the first rays of light filtered through the curtains. After 3 weeks in the hospital, both sheened. Her baby was safe thanks to the meticulous care they had received. Daniel insisted on hiring an expert nurse to look after her during her recovery, and although she initially resisted, Lucy had to admit it was the right decision. However, what surprised her most was the change in Daniel's routine. Isabella considered it unprecedented that he started working from home several days a week. I've never seen the master dedicate extra time outside of his work hours, the clanner revealed with surprise and acceptance. As for Gabriel, he had become a half-faithful companion. After school, he would rush to her room to tell her about this day, read her his favorite books, or simply stay by her side while she did her tasks. Sometimes when he thought Lucy was asleep, he would whisper to the baby, sharing secrets and assuring it they would be inseparable companions. That morning, Lucy was slowly trying to get up when she felt an energetic movement in her abdomen that brought a smile to her face. She placed a hand on her swollen belly, caressing it with affection. Good morning to you too, little one, she whispered. A soft knock on the door broke the stillness. Come in, she replied, expecting the nurse with her first meal of the day. Unexpectedly, Daniel appeared carrying a tray. Lucy was surprised to see him, dressed informally, something unusual in her experience, instead of his usual elegant suits. Jeans and a blue shirt that accentuated his deep eyes, making him look more youthful and approachable. With a shy smile, he greeted her. Good morning. Since Isabella is busy managing suppliers, I offered to prepare your breakfast. Lucy tried to hide her astonishment. "Thank you, but you didn't have to bother." Daniel placed the tray on the bedside table and sat on the nearby chair. "No problem. Besides, I wanted to talk to you." Lucy stiffened, sensing a certain nuance in his voice. Had he decided that because of her condition she was no longer fit to care for Gabriel? Would he ask her to leave once the baby arrived? She nervously asked if something was wrong with Gabriel. Daniel shook his head. "Thanks to you, Gabriel is thriving. In fact, it's about him that I wanted to speak to you," as he smoothed his hair back with his hand. Lucy noted it was a sign of nervousness he often displayed. He continued, mentioning that Gabriel's birthday was on Sunday at 8 years old. He wanted to celebrate the occasion. Lucy expressed her relief, commenting on how wonderful that was. "Could we plan a modest celebration here at the house and invite his school friends?" Daniel's expression darkened slightly. "That's Daisu. Gabriel doesn't have close friends at school since Isabella's passing. He's become very withdrawn, according to child psychologists. This is due to his way of protecting himself from being left behind." A feeling of melancholy washed over Lucy Althar. Gabriel had made considerable progress. Over the past months, emotional wounds still lingered that needed to be healed. "So what's your idea?" Daniel, with a slight smile, mentioned that Gabriel wanted something simple, just the three of us. He says he now considers us his family. The words hit Lucy like a wave. Family unit for Gabriel. Was she part of his family unit? She felt a lump in her throat. Did he really say that? Yes, he did. "We'll make sure it's a memorable day for him." Daniel looked at her intently, as if searching her gaze for something. "Lucy, there's something else I need to tell you. There's something I must reveal." She was surprised to be called by her first name so informally. During the month she had worked at Demontian, Daniel had always addressed her as Miss Red, which created a professionality that, despite sometimes frustrating her, also provided her with comfort. "I'm listening," she replied, trying not to pay attention to her rapidly beating heart. Daniel stood up and walked to the window, his back to her. Her silhouette was outlined against the sunlit morning curtain. "When I had read you," he began, "I didn't just consider your teaching abilities, it was because I recognized you." Lucy frowned in confusion. "You recognized me? I don't recall us ever meeting before." Daniel turned to face her. "Although we hadn't met in person, I had the pleasure of knowing your husband, Matthew. When the accident occurred, he was working on the construction sites I oversaw." Lucy felt as if the world had stopped suddenly. Everything made sense. Why had Daniel hired her, despite her pregnancy? Where his immense generosity? Why his devoted care during her illness? Yowaned the construction company, she whispered with difficulty, feeling her breath catch. Daniel nodded. "Seriously, the accident shouldn't have happened. All safety procedures were in place. However, there was an oversight that was covered up by my superiors until it was too late." Lucy felt intense dizziness. Was this whole situation the job? Daniel's kindness merely about guilt? Guilt, she asked in a choked voice. Why he hadn't told her this from the beginning. He honestly explained that he was afraid of being rejected, and that she wouldn't want anything to do with him. "I wanted to help you, Lucy. I believed it was a debt owed to you and your husband." Lucy chose to close her eyes to absorb all the new information. When she opened them again, her eyes showed great resolve. She expressed her desire to know precisely what had happened that day. Absolutely, everything must be revealed. No more hiding. Daniel agreed to her request. Considering it a fair one, he sat down again, but this time he sat closer to her. In the heart of the city, the construction company was erecting an office building for different stages of the project. We had selected various subcontracting companies. One of the individuals in charge of the electrical system was creating fraudulent safety certificates. He paused briefly, as if the words were a heavy burden. The team in charge should have discovered it, but they didn't. Even worse, they ignored it. To meet deadlines, when Matthew discovered a problem with electrical installation, he tried to report it, but the supervisor in charge assured him it would be taken care of later. However, he never did. Lucer embarred the fragmented information she had been given about the incident. The fault caused a short circuit. She murmured, "That's right, a localized fire broke out, causing a section of the building to collapse." Matthew was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Lucy felt tears stream down her cheeks. For all these months she had tried not to dwell on how Matthew died, focusing on staying strong and moving forward for her child's sake. However, now the raw reality hit her with full force. Between sobs, she questioned why he hadn't contacted her sooner. Why wait until I was desperate and looking for a job? Daniel cast his eyes downwards. "I tried. I sent delegates to your home. However, you never receive a Danian. I left messages that never got a response. I even tried to offer you compensation through my legal representatives, but you refused." Lucy barely retained a faint memory of those efforts after Matthew died. She experienced intense grief for the first few months. She didn't answer the doorbell. She discarded mail unopened and avoided any interaction with the outside world. It was only after learning she was pregnant that she began to respond and strive. To overcome her difficult situation, Daniel continued speaking, mentioning that when he saw her resume the nanny position, he interpreted it as an opening, a chance to directly offer assistance without intermediaries. Since he knew she wouldn't accept free help, he proposed a genuine job opportunity, one that perfectly matched her skills. Lucy wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Does Gabriel know about this? Daniel replied immediately with a firm no. You are the light that has come into our home, and you've shown him that no Devarian leaves you are essential in his life. A long silence settled between them. Lucy looked out the window, trying to organize her thoughts and feelings. Felt pain from the betrayal, yet she understood the reasons behind Daniel's actions. Now what do you expect from Mesh? Finally questioned. To forgive you. Do you want to be absolved of responsibility? Daniel shook his head. Lucy, I have no expectations. I thought it was only fair for you to know the truth before choosing whether you want to stay here. I offer you the job for as long as you prefer. Regardless of your decision, if you choose to leave, I will ensure that you and your child have a stable future. It's the least I can do. Lucy looked at him intently. Although she was hurting, she couldn't deny that during this time she had developed feelings for Daniel, emotions that transcended gratitude or professional respect. And no, with this revelation the situation became even more complex. Finally, she said, I need some space to think. Daniel stood up, showing consideration for her state. Of course, take all the time you need. As he headed for the exit, Lucy stopped him. Daniel turned hopeful. We're still planning to celebrate Gabriel's birthday, aren't we? I won't let this spoil it for the little one. A subtle relieved smile appeared on Daniel's lips. Thank you, Lucy. Your generosity is more than I deserve. After Daniel left, Lucy remained contemplating the breakfast tray, which was now cold and untouched. A whirlwind of conflicting emotions flooded her mind. She felt a mix of anger, sadness at discovering that Daniel had kept such a significant secret from her. On the other hand, she understood the reasons behind his actions and valued his sincerity despite its belated arrival. Then Gabriel appeared. The little boy she had grown to love as if he were her own family. She couldn't leave him, not no one. He was finally beginning to trust, to open up. However, how could she remaining this house, sharing a roof with the man who had indirectly played a role in Matthew's tragedy? Her thoughts were interrupted by a gentle knock on the door. Lucy. Gabriel's voice. Can I come in? Lucy quickly wiped away her remaining tears. Yes, my love, you can come in. As he entered, Gabriel carried a piece of paper. Noticing Lucy's red eyes, he frowned in concern. Are you sad? He asked, approaching the bed. Just a little bit, she replied honestly, but it'll pass soon. Gabriel seemed to understand perfectly. When I'm sad, you make me feel better. He offered her the paper. It was a colorful drawing with 3 figures, a tall man, a woman with a prominent belly, and a tiny child in the middle holding hands. At the top, in large, uneven letters, was the inscription, My Family. A feeling of overwhelming emotion surged in Lucy. How could she leave now? How could she abandon what she shared with Gabriel, her baby and herself? She expressed her admiration for the beauty of the drawing as she wrapped her arms around the boy, giving him a heartfelt kiss with a satisfied smile. Gabriel expressed his joy. Dad told me we're having a birthday party next Sunday, just the 3 of us. Lucy nodded in agreement. It'll be a truly special day, and then when the baby is born we'll be a family of 4, Gabriel exclaimed, excited at her family. Lucy didn't have the heart to correct him. Instead, she gently stroked his hair. Can I help you plan your celebration? Could we make a list of the dishes you want and the games we want to play? Gabriel's excitement soared, completely erasing the sadness he had perceived in Lucy's eyes moments before as the little boy enthusiastically chatted about cakes and presents. Lucy reflected on her situation. Perhaps she thought time would heal Thescus. Perhaps in the future she could find a way to forgive Daniel, even if it wasn't possible right now. Meanwhile, she had Gabriel, who needed her love and unwavering support in this crucial moment. What choice do you think Lucy would regarding her future with Daniel and Gabriel? Do you believe she can truly forgive Daniel for his indirect role in Matthew's death? Share your thoughts below. Leading up to Gabriel's birthday celebration, Lucy and Daniel maintained a polite but reserved relationship, respected her need for privacy, only inquiring about her well-being in Thebes. She made every effort to maintain a normal demeanor with Gabriel, preventing their personal issues from affecting the little boy. As Sunday dawned, Lucy rose early to organize some surprises for the birthday boy. With Isabella's help, she decorated the living room with balloons and streamers. She also oversaw the preparation of Gabriel's favorite dessert, a delicious chocolate cake with strawberries. Daniel participated in the arrangements, bring brightly wrapped gifts and helping with the decorations while hanging a garland. Their hands accidentally brushed. A jolt of electricity ran through Lucy, and seeing Daniel's gaze, she instinctively knew. He had felt it too. "Lucy, I need to talk to you," he said. At that moment she gently stopped him. "Today is Gabriel's birthday." Daniel nodded, showing understanding. "You're right, however, we will need Totic at some point after the celebration," Lucy assured him. "We'll do that." When Gabriel came down for breakfast, he was thrilled to see the decorations, his face lit up with a genuine joy that made all the previous effort worthwhile. He ran quickly to Lucy and wrapped her in a tight hug. He exclaimed it was their most incredible party on the planet. Daniel watched the scene with a mixture of joy and melancholy. He approached them, and suddenly wrapped both of them in a warm embrace. For an instant, they perfectly embodied Gabriel's perception of them, a family unit. The celebration turned out to be cozy yet brimming with joy and entertainment. Lucy arranged a scavenger hunt in the large house with riddles Gabriel had to solve using his astronomy knowledge. Daniel actively participated, chasing his son from room to room, revealing a side Lucy hadn't known until then. When it was time to cut the cake, Gabriel suggested that all three of them blow out the candles together. He argued that being part of the same family, it was natural to do things together as families do. Daniel looked at Lucy for approval. With a nod of agreement, she leaned her head slightly next to the other two, drawing closer to their sparkling cake. Lucy suggested that Gabriel make a wish. The little boy squeezed his eyelids shut tightly for an instant, then blew out the candles firmly. There were cheers and shouts of joy from everyone, including Isabella, who had decided to stay and take photos after dessert. It was time to open the gifts. Gabriel received books about the universe, a set to build a scale model of the solar system, and new clothes. However, the gift that touched him most was the final one, a tiny box Daniel gave him with a serious expression. "This gift is very significant, my son. I've kept it for a long time, waiting for the right moment to give it to you." Carefully, Gabriel opened the box. Inside was an antique pocket watch with silver embellishments, a delicate chain. Daniel explained that the piece first belonged to his grandfather and then passed to his father. "It's yours now, with respect." Gabriel took the watch and opened it, finding a small picture inside the lid. A young Daniel alongside an older gentleman, both smiling. Gabriel, surprised, inquired, "Is this Grandad?" To which Daniel responded affirmatively. "Grandad would have been proud of you, just as I am." With tears of joy, the boy ran to his father and hugged him tightly. Moved, Lucy watched the scene intently. In thought instant, Matthew's familiar words came to mind. "True love knows no restrictions, no boundaries. It is simply eternal and enduring." Perhaps, she reflected, that was the feeling she now had for Daniel and Gabriel, a love that had been born in completely unexpected circumstances, but that was just as genuine as the one she had felt for Matthew, different, yet equally strong. As Lucy reflects on her feelings, what do you think this shared moment of family joy means for her future with Daniel? What's the most unexpected way you've seen a fractured family find happiness again? Share your thoughts below. As the party concluded, Gabriel retired to bed, exhausted but content, leaving Lucy and Daniel alone in its living room, clearing up the remnants of the celebration. It was a perfect day, Daniel said as he carefully put away Gabriel's gifts from the table. Lucy thanked him with a subtle smile for making it all possible. Gabriel deserved that. Daniel agreed that the boy was wonderful and mentioned that a significant part of his recent happiness was due to her. A moment of silence passed, filled with unexpressed words. Daniel finally remembered that they had agreed to talk after the event. Lucy nodded and sat on one of the sofas. Daniel took a seat opposite her, ensuring he maintained a proper distance between them. "I've been thinking a lot lately about Matthew." Lucy began. "About you, about Gabriel, and about everything." Daniel waited, allowing her to collect their thoughts. "At first, I was very angry with you," she continued. "I felt that Yahoo had manipulated me, that this was all just a way to ease your guilt." He nodded calmly. "However, later I realized something, looking into his eyes." Lucy told him that she couldn't hold him responsible for what happened to Matthew. "The employees made a careless mistake, but you didn't order them to disregard safety procedures. You weren't aware of what was happening." Daniel's words, "See Meto," have taken him by surprise. He sadly stated that despite everything, it was his duty, as it was his business, his rules, and ultimately his responsibility. Lucy told Daniel that life isn't simply in that remaining bound by guilt prevents us from moving forward. "You can trust me on this. I learned that lesson the hard way after Matthew's passing." She placed her hands on her belly, feeling her little one move. This child showed method. Life goes on, that it's important to keep moving forward. Thanks to Gabriel, Liv discovered that you can love again, create new connections, and establish a different kind of family. Daniel watched her with a mixture of hope and caution. "Lucy, What are you saying? I'm saying I can't promise to forgive you in the near future, but I'm ready to try gradually day by day. For Gabriel's sake, for my little one, and perhaps for our own well-being. To moving cautiously closer, Daniel showed a certain fear that she might get scared and pull away. Lucy, with determination, agreed to give him a chance, though she demanded absolute honesty from that moment forward. Daniel assured her, holding her hands firmly, that there would be no more hiding or half-truths, absolute transparency. Lucy nodded, confirming the unspoken pact between them. Although it wasn't an immediate happy ending, it marked the beginning of something promising, a path towards recovery, forgiveness, and perhaps in the future, experiencing love in its entirety. What do you think is the last twist fate has in store for her? Lucy and Daniel, what's the most incredible coincidence you've ever experienced that changed everything? Share your stories below. Later that night, Lucy was getting ready for bed when she felt a particularly intense kick from her little one. As she stroked her belly, she whispered calming words, "Everything will be alright, we're finding our way." After a long time, she finally trusted that the future, once seen as bleak and solitary, now glowed with unexpected possibilities. With Daniel and Gabriel by her side, she would be ready to face any challenge with renewed hope. They were unaware that fate held one last twist, a revelation that would challenge the delicate stability they had managed to achieve. Sometimes secrets find a special way to reveal themselves, even those we thought buried forever. A month after Gabriel's birthday celebration, Lucy woke up feeling an intense discomfort that she immediately recognized the baby was coming 3 weeks earlier than expected. Daniel, she called, trying to remain calm even as the contractions grew stronger. In an instant, Daniel appeared at the doorway, still in his pajamas. "It's time," she said, her breath hitched. Daniel quickly helped her up. Over the past few weeks, their bond had slowly progressed. Although not perfect, they were building a genuine relationship, founded on sincerity and mutual respect. He decided to call Isabella to look after Gabriel, quickly dialing on his mobile while supporting Lucy with his arm. After ensuring everything was alright, Daniel led her to the car. As he drove to the hospital, he comforted her, telling her everything would be fine, assuring her, "I'm by your side." On the way, Lucy mentally reviewed the time she had spent since arriving at the Thorne residence, the initial fear, the bond with Gabriel, the discovery about Matthew, and finally this peculiar and beautiful new possibility that life offered her at the hospital. Everything happened quickly and frantically. Contractions grew stronger. Doctors assisted her, and Daniel stayed by her side, holding her hand firmly. "Please don't leave," she pleaded amidst a particularly intense contraction. "Never," he assured her, kissing her sweaty forehead. After a long period of labor, a newborn scream resonated in the room. The doctor announced it was a girl as he placed the tiny infant in Lucy's arms with tears of joy in her eyes. Lucy looked at her little one. She was perfect, with a dark mane of hair and a rosy complexion. "Hello, Celeste," she murmured, recalling the name Gabriel had suggested months ago. Daniel watched the scene cautiously, not daring to get too close, as if fearing to disturb that special moment between mother and daughter. Lucy called him softly, inviting him to meet her. As Daniel approached, Lucy noticed something unusual on his face. It wasn't just emotion or surprise, but a perplexing realization. She inquired about what was happening. Daniel's gaze remained fixed on the baby, focusing especially on a peculiar crescent-shaped mark on her right wrist. Whispered that Mark, Gabriel's mother, Isabella, had an identical twin. Lucy frowned and replied that it was just a coincidence. Despite a gut feeling, Daniel shook his head, moving from disbelief to comprehension. "Must ask you something, Lucy, and it's crucial that you answer me with absolute frankness. Were you familiar with Isabella before Matthew's accident?" The question took her by surprise. "In person," she replied cautiously. "However, Matthew occasionally spoke of her. They both worked at the same construction company. I believe she worked as an engineer." Briefly closed his eyes. In a shaky voice, he mentioned that Isabella left the company immediately after Matthew's accident. She said she couldn't stay there after what happened, expressing the urgency to distance herself from her surroundings. Lucy began to understand the idea Daniel was proposing. Daniel quickly interrupted her when she tried to ask about Isabella and Matthew. "However, this physical characteristic is to lawyer need to be a coincidence." A profound silence enveloped them as the implications became clear. If Daniel's suggestion was true, it would mean that Celeste and Gabriel had Matthew as their common father. "We need a DNA test," Lucy announced, looking at her resting daughter. Daniel nodded and sat beside the bed. "No matter how it all turns out, my love for you, Lucy, will remain the same." 2 weeks later, Lucy gently rocked Celeste in the rocking chair in her room. As the baby rested peacefully, she had no idea of their evolution of feelings. Her arrival had caused Daniel's arrival was announced by a soft knock on the door with a on his face. He seemed to have news. In a low voice he announced where have the results. Carefully not to disturb the baby's sleep, Lucy nodded in acceptance. Bracing herself for what was to come, Daniel affirmed that Gabriel was Matthew's biological son. His tone reflected a mix of conflicting emotions. Isabella should have kept that secret from both of them, although she had suspected it. The news deeply impacted Lucy. Gabriel, whom she had come to love as if he were her own son, turned out Tobe, her daughter's half-brother. Faced with this revelation, she wondered what path to take. As her reality crumbled once more, Daniel leaned towards her, tenderly holding her hands. He expressed that he felt fate had laid out a singular path for both of them. Lucy, a path that had united them through difficult and sad moments, but also through love. With eyes brimming with tears, Lucy stared at him intently. Do you think we should tell Gabriel? Shine quiet, Daniel replied. Yes, but that it would be better to wait until he was older and could understand. For now, it's enough for him to know that we're his family and that we love him unconditionally. He moved closer to her, his eyes showing firm resolve. Lucy, I know our beginning was met during hard times and we are still recovering, but the time spent with you and Gabriel been the happiest period I have experienced with Celeste by my side. I believe we can build something wonderful together. He took a moment to breathe deeply before expressing his feelings. Lucy, I love you very much and I want to build a family with you, to raise these children together and be the family we both long for. As she held little Celeste, Susie thought of Gabriel, who was at school at that moment, perhaps drawing another picture of his family. In that instant, she realized that true love can appear in completely unexpected situations and that sometimes destiny unites lives in unimaginable ways. Finally, she replied, Daniel, I love you too, and yes, I want us to build our home together. 1 year later, the garden of Thorn residence glowed with flowers and lights in honor of a special event, and all waited anxiously under a canopy of white roses, accompanied by Gabrielle, both looking sophisticated in their suits at the end of the aisle. As Lucy appeared with Celeste in her arms, a gasp spread among the few attendees. Lucia looked splendid in a modest white dress, her hair adorned with tiny flowers. Gabriel ran towards her, unable to control his emotion. Mummy, he praised her body, hugging her tightly with determination. A smile appeared on Lucy's face as she heard Gabriel call her mummy so spontaneously. She was the mother he had always longed for, and Celeste was the little sister who made his happiness complete. The celebration turned out to be a moving and very personal moment. Daniel and Lucy promised to give each other a new chance, expressing their love born from difficult moments and the strong family they built despite adversities. They were pronounced husband and wife by the officiant. Daniel lifted Gabriel into his arms. At the same time he kissed Lucy, who held Celeste in her arms. The four embraced in a gesture fate presented their incredible journey. That night, when the children were resting, Daniel and Lucy enjoyed the view of the stars from their bedroom balcony. Lucy tenderly asked if he thought Matthew would agree with the idea of caring for his children together. Daniel wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. He honestly expressed that he would feel at peace if he knew his children were loved and that she was happy. Lucy nodded, experiencing a profound calm within her being. After a long and difficult journey, marked by suffering and mysteries, they had finally found mutual refuge and love which had overcome suffering, remorse, and the passage of time. As the starlight enveloped them, Lucy reflected on how sometimes the most beautiful outcomes arise from the most improbable beginnings. True love has no boundaries, and even in the darkest moments there is always an opportunity to find light.